What's up, everyone? Welcome into the Dear Miss Fantasy show with me, your host, Tara Roberts. This is the official Mailbag show for Player Profiler. It is Wednesday, January 7th. We are in 2026, and this is our first off-season show. I can't believe it. We missed last week's show because I was fully prepared to go, and then it hit me at like 5 o'clock. I was like, oh my God, it's New Year's Eve. I should probably go out and get some fireworks and shoot fireworks with my kids. So, but we are back, and we have a ton to talk about because I want to do a lot of things in this show. I want to, of course, this show will be obviously structured a little bit different because in season we're still live, but in season when we're a live show, obviously you guys have a ton of start sig questions. We don't have those this week, although of course you can ask if you've got playoff fantasy football leagues that you're doing, or DFS, or betting, or any of that good stuff. Of course, always feel free. But that means because we don't have as many start sit questions, we're going to do a little bit more covering players, and we'll start off with some news as well for the head coach vacancies. And of course, you can always drop any questions that you have. You can drop them before the show to me and I can put them in the show. You can drop them during the show. Any questions that you have in terms of rankings, any kind of free agency news, rookie stuff, draft, best ball, all that good stuff, like 100% open book here. So as always, and of course, always fun conversations in the chat as well. But welcome in, guys. I'm so excited to be here with you. And let's go ahead and dive right in with some news. We actually have the ability to do news. I don't get to do news in season because obviously for the podcast version, and then the news is no fun because the news is all injury related. And by the time that you guys hear the podcast, the injury news is probably irrelevant or out of date or anything like that. But now that we're in the off season, any news is going to be absolutely relevant. So yay, we can do more timely conversations here. So I'm going to start us off talking about all of the head coach vacancies. Then we're going to do some recaps, talk about individual players and the things we got right, wrong, winners, losers, bust from the 2025 season. We can touch on 2026 early rankings. I already went ahead and updated my rankings for the 2026 season. Yes, I already did that. They are active, they are published, and I've got the top 20 at every position. Other than, I didn't include kickers or defenses because those things are kind of a little bit irrelevant off season because defensive rankings, ebb and flow with free agency more so than anything. But all of our good stuff. Oh, and free agency, we can touch on the free agency stuff. I actually already, just fun fact here in terms of my, I'm very meticulous when it comes to free agency. So every off season, one of the first things that I do is I create my master free agency and draft spreadsheet. It's kind of a little bit crazy, but it's awesome for me. I go through every single team and I organize all of their free agents, offensive and defensive, because the defensive free agencies and do matter. And my God, the offensive free agencies in terms of offensive linemen are super important to us from a fantasy football perspective. So I track all of that stuff. I then go through and identify all of the needs for every single team, their priorities that they will address in free agency and the draft, and the additional would be nice to have things for every single team. I then go through and I rank all of the free agents at every single position other than, defense. And I don't do defense at all for free agency rankings. That's a little too much, a little too deep there. But I do it at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, rank all of them fairly deep, right? And then I go through and I do potential landing spots for everyone. I organize the best landing spots for every single position and rank them. It sounds a little crazy when I explain it, but it really helps me from a process. Like, it makes everything so streamlined for me the entire off season in terms of identifying players that we need to target in best ball and early draft targets and dynasty, all of that good stuff. And then draft and trying to figure out, I also enjoy doing mock drafts and predicting, places and landing spots, because that also helps with finding those, especially for redraft. It's not just a dynasty thing. It's super important for redraft as well, because it helps you identify those hidden gems, and also those hidden gems that might not actually be gems that you think like that's a gem, and it turns out that might not be a gem here. And it's coming around quickly. Like, and this is like a weird turnaround here because the college playoffs going until like, so we'll get college playoffs next week. And then literally the week, I think the following week. Yeah. Are we 2 weeks away? Or 3 weeks? I think it's 3 weeks away. Literally like the next week after that, we'll have the Senior Bowl. It's like bunching up and like really close together because of the college playoff. So it's very weird. Like, I feel like once we get the national championship game, I feel like we're going to like jump right into rookie stuff and literally have a 2-week turnaround until the Senior Bowl. So that's going to be crazy, but it'll be fun. So I've got my whole rookie guide as well. I do like, again, I'm very meticulous, guys. I have do I have it up? No, I don't, because it's on my other computer. I have I don't know how many page document that has rookie profiles and rankings for pretty deep, like 10 to 15 for every position, and some additionals that I'll add after that as we start going through and looking at the scouting process. But so that's already completed. My free agency and draft tracker is already completed. So I'm like ready and raring to go here. So it's going to be a fun off season for us. Shout out to the chat. Hey, Big Noggin, what's up? Just made it home from work, making dinner. Oh, thank you. You're so wonderful. Always great to listen to the smartest lady in fantasy football. What you making for dinner? I made tacos tonight for my kids. It was Taco Wednesday. They're pretty good. Not going to lie here. So I'm full. But let's go ahead and dive right in to the show here. And again, I thought I would start us off with a fun conversation. News and notes regarding the head coach vacancies here. This is going to be really interesting. Because I think we all knew who was, kind of on the chopping block. It was kind of a matter of like, realistically, is John Harbaugh really going to get fired? And then that happening just kind of puts us in this like crazy, like, okay, we're going to do like a round robin of like musical chairs, if you will. Yeah, musical chairs. Let's call it musical chairs with head coaching vacancies of everybody switch it around teams, because I don't know if you guys feel this way, but I kind of feel, or this might actually be a very common feeling. I kind of feel like the coaching pool of candidates, new head coach candidates, is very weak. At first, when I started seeing like the, interviews that Tennessee was doing, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. Like, okay, we're really going this retread direction here. And then I started thinking about it, and I'm like, man, we have a lot of offensive or a lot of defensive coordinators that could have some promise. But again, I want to be open to giving defensive coordinators chances, obviously, from a head coaching perspective, but the offensive coordinators are very important for head coaching positions here. And there's just not a lot of options. Some of them are obviously in the playoffs here. I do think that Clint Kubiak is going to be, especially if they make it to the actual Super Bowl, is going to be a very popular candidate there. So there's going to be some offensive ones that we can pull from. But because I feel like it's kind of a little bit of a weak class here. Coming off of a year where you had the darling of Ben Johnson, the offensive guru that obviously turned out to be absolutely correct in terms of his upside there. I guess, this season was kind of a little bit of a letdown from the coaching candidate perspective pool. But because we're going to be recycling coaches, that's actually going to be fun for us to analyze, because there's not going to be a whole bunch of question marks. Like, we can say, okay, if Kevin Stefanski were to get hired for Tennessee, I know exactly now what to do with and it's not like we were like gung-ho on the Titans or anything, but now you look at it and you're like, well, I guess I need to look at, Gunnar Helm, and are they going to keep Chig? Probably, I believe he's a free agent. Yeah, they're probably going to, want, because Kevin Stefanski loves his tight ends. He wants a system where he wants a nice little safe game manager quarterback to throw to tight ends. The deep ball is not going to be there, although Cam Ward is obviously very talented. So as we get these retreads, it's going to be very clear for us how we approach these teams. So it's going to be very interesting. But I did rank the head coach vacancies. We can go through this. The obvious one for number one is obviously Baltimore there. That's going to be it's going to be real interesting to see what they do there, because John Harbaugh is going to be the top candidate for all the other teams, and Baltimore is going to be looking elsewhere. So it's going to be funny because it's an ideal landing spot. You've got your locked in franchise quarterback. You are almost guaranteed success. Like you got a 99% hit rate of outperforming the 2024 results because the 2020 or 2025 results because 2025 was an anomaly there. We'll be heading into 2026 with a healthy Lamar Jackson. And as long as Lamar Jackson is healthy, you are factually going to have an improvement on your record and probably going to the playoffs. So it's an ideal landing spot there. You're locked in. I mean, what do you really got to do? Just kind of revamp the defense a little bit, get it back on track. You've got Derrick Henry. You got Zay Flowers. You need to add a wide receiver. So there's things to do, but it's a very easy job to slide into. After that, I think the Giants is the most appealing job. It's funny because I've seen a lot of comments of people saying, "Oh, you don't want to go coach a New York team." Why would you like New York is an agreeable organization. I understand there hasn't been a lot of recent success, like recent success, but this is not a team that is absent Super Bowls, right? So their ownership is agreeable, not a nightmare. We'll talk about some that are nightmares as we go on down the list. You've got Jackson Dart, who looked very promising. You just got to keep him upright, invest in your offensive line, get him to be a little bit more responsible with running. You've got Malik Neighbors. You got a locked in wide receiver one, young, in contract. You won't have to deal with that for a long time. Hopefully Cam Scatterbo comes back and looks like the same version that we saw him. All you got to really do, invest in your offensive line, get a wide receiver too. You got pieces on defense, a very simple job to just slide right into. Not an issue there. So ideal situation. We've heard the rumors that the Giants' ideal candidate is John Harbaugh. I think that would probably be his ideal location as well. So that would make a ton of sense to me. But maybe it doesn't happen right away because everybody and their mother is calling trying to get him. So there's going to be offers on top of offers for him. After that, Atlanta is the third ranked defense third ranked head coach vacancy there. The issue with Atlanta is that you are locked into the quarterback. You can't change that. But you got tons of weapons and the defense, and that's what I said, the Atlanta defense. The Atlanta defense, I think, is like right on the cusp of excellence, right? They're like excellent pieces. They got fleeced in the draft by the Rams. Like, make no mistake, that was objectively terrible. But James Pierce is awesome. So I think it's going to pan out as they continue to grow. And next year, I can see this being a team that makes kind of a similar leap to the LA Rams in terms of the defensive investments they made in the draft and being able to make that leap to an elite level there. But you got Bijan, you got Drake London. Perhaps they're able to retain Kyle Pitts as well. You just got to get somebody. I firmly believe, and I hope that Atlanta is intelligent enough to do this. They cannot hire a defensive coordinator. You can't. You need somebody who can develop a quarterback because Michael Penix is what you got. You're not going to draft another quarterback. You can't buy another quarterback. You ain't got the money for that. You got to pay Kirk Cousins. So from that perspective, you need somebody as a head coach that can actually physically develop Michael Penix into a competent quarterback there. But yeah, third ranked there. After that, this one is the one that I think is sorry if you guys can hear a dog going off in the background. That's somebody has obviously come home and my dog's losing their mind there. But I'll go, actually my fourth one is kind of controversial. So before I go on to the fourth, I'll go to the chat here, see what you guys have to say. Let's see here. Oh, Big Noggin said air frying some chicken tendies and potatoes. My air fryer is broken and I'm miserable. I'm trying to get someone to fix it because I don't want to buy another one. It's not, I'm low-key, like, I'm not cheap, but like, I just want it to be fixed. So it's broken right now and I'm very frustrated because I love my air fryer. Try Lambs, what's up? Brian Flores to Baltimore. I think that would be, hey, they like a defensive head coach, right? Brian Flores defense with the talent that they do have promising talent, obviously, Clemson, why? I always point the wrong way. They got one of my Clemson boys up there. I think that he could turn that defense into something very scary, right? With the system that he's got. So I don't mind that at all because Lamar is Lamar, so you don't need him to develop. We know he cannot develop a wayward quarterback, but Lamar is fantastic. So he doesn't have to do any development there. He doesn't have to deal with any, although it's funny, he was right about Tua. Oops. Brian Flores was right about Tua. Oops. So yeah, that's actually, I love that suggestion. I think that would be a really good spot for him. Makes a lot of sense. Smooth transition there. And he would be able to improve exactly what they need to improve there. Just hire a nice offensive coordinator. So the rumors have been that Todd Monken was an issue, which is weird because I don't think that Todd Monken was an issue. I didn't see it. He was not the one out there dropping those passes. So I don't see a problem with him. But I think that was a good hire, but it sounds like maybe he would follow John Harbaugh. So that's not a bad thing. But yeah, just hire a nice little offensive coordinator, someone up and coming there, get a good system in. And yeah, I think they can slide really easily. I love that suggestion there. Which I realize I'm not showing the comments there. Sorry about that. Give credit to you there, Tri Lambs. What's up, Easy E? Hope everything is doing well with you too. Henry Odom says Falcons looks like it might be a hidden gem spot. As long as as long as it's an offensive coach that really is, competent and comes I would just pull some, and it sucks, but it's weird because their offensive coordinator came from the Rams system. So I don't know why they couldn't figure out how to, but perhaps his skill set could not be translated into helping rehab, or not even rehab, but helping truly push a young quarterback forward. But yeah, it's a good situation for somebody who is very confident that they could take a player like Penix and push him to the next level there for sure. From Buy and Sell You, is dealing with Schoen a problem or problematic for a head coach? No, I don't think so. And I kind of had this thought as well, but I feel like Joe isn't very staunch in being like a great, perfect example. So Brian Dable wanted Jackson Dart. Joe Schoen didn't fight him on that. So I don't think that there would be a lot of issues in terms of him being a major problem for hiring a head coach, because I think he's kind of on the more agreeable side there for sure. Henry Odom, yeah, the Cardinals hire will probably change their playmakers, especially Wilson in redraft. I agree with that one. The Cardinals, spoiler alert, the Cardinals are definitely not the next spot on my list in terms of ideal hiring locations there. They're going to have to go through, obviously, they're probably going to be moving on from Kyler Murray. And because of the pick that they have, they're not going to get their choice of one of the top two quarterbacks, right? So they'll have to make a decision in terms of, are they going to fall in love with someone in the scouting process that they'll, be comfortable taking at their pick? Or will they decide, hey, maybe we wait till day 2 and we get somebody, a lower end prospect, and we bridge with Jacoby Brissett because we like Jacoby Brissett. The players like Jacoby Brissett. He brought a lot of positivity, didn't bring a lot of wins, but maybe a head coach feels more confident that they can push them onto the right track there and use Jacoby as a bridge to a day 2 quarterback there. So that does make a ton of sense. So at least they have Jacoby in contract for another year so that they don't have to feel rushed to make an aggressive decision there. But they're such a weird organization. I feel like they're an organization that is very just kind of mediocre, right? So if I'm as I'm going through and I'm ranking, and I'm just like, there's just something about Arizona that screams a consistent 7 wins. It's it at best, right? And I liked Cliff before. We know that Kyler Murray is an issue, but at the end of the day, I think that they're kind of stuck in a little mediocrity zone, and it's going to be interesting to see if they can take that next leap there. And it was very weird how we didn't have any kind of true positive progression for that defense under Jonathan Gannon. I just feel like there's still a lot that needs to be upgraded on that team as a whole. It doesn't make a lot of sense there. But my number 4, so we had Baltimore. Giants, Atlanta. Everybody seems very much on par that those three, like in general, aside from the Giants, sometimes people feeling a little bit uncomfortable with that as an organization. Everyone feels pretty, good about those three, right? Then we get into our other ones here. My fourth might surprise people a little bit. My fourth, and I feel oddly passionate about this, is Las Vegas as an ideal landing spot. And go with their and I know bad organization, constant carousel of coaches, just the success has not been flowing, right? But when I look at that team and the fact that they were able to secure that first overall pick, first of all, they did the right thing in terms of shutting everyone down, getting that first overall pick. That was key because that's a nice little shiny carrot to potentially go out there and get the coach that is right for you and not feel like you're having to beg, borrow, and steal like some of the other teams at the bottom of the list here. I think it upgrades them a little bit and kind of washes away some of that stench of some of that Raiders stench, unfortunately. But in addition to that, with the fact that they have the first overall pick, meaning that whoever comes in there is going to be able to, they'll have their ideal quarterback, right? They get to decide, they get to debate on which one they want, which one is the right fit for them, their system, who is the guy that they want to lead their organization, change the culture of their organization. But in addition to that, they have got the dumbest amount of cap space. And this is a very positive thing because it allows you to come in, get your quarterback as a rookie, and then you can add in all the pieces around them. I was watching I don't even know what show. I was watching some show on a sports, I won't say station, some sports talk show. And they were very adamant. This panel was very adamant that the Raiders would be irresponsible if they drafted a quarterback into their bad team situation, talking about the offensive line and this, and that. Like, it would be kind of ridiculous for them to pass up the opportunity to get a franchise quarterback. And they have so much cap space. You can buy an offensive line. You don't need to draft an offensive line. They were saying, trade back, get picks, draft linemen. No, you don't have to. You can't draft one piece, but you don't have to draft an entire offensive line. They're available for purchase very easily at Chicago. It works if you grab the right ones. Just make sure you don't grab the ones that are too aging and defunct, right? Go out there, spend top dollar, get you the ideal offensive lineman, and you can build that from scratch. It is not that hard to do. Add in some pieces on defense as well. And this could take a path very similar to the Patriots if they do this correctly, but management has to do this correctly. And low key, it's kind of possible, in my opinion, that they might go a path more direct to what the Patriots did and hire a coach that is more of an interim figure. Whether or not that coach knows that or not, we don't know, but they could hire that coach to kind of come in and handle a team that is going to be objectively bad. And then they make their move next season. But because they have so much cap space right now, I think they go more of the direct route and they start to immediately spend up and buy all the pieces that they need to rebuild the organization. So I don't mind it as a landing spot. Obviously, organizationally, they got a lot of problems, but you can't beat the first overall pick and the opportunity to build an entire team with literally no limitations or restrictions. They're not tied. They don't have the same situation as Atlanta where you're tied to your quarterback. That's it. You're tied to certain players, like Cleveland. There's not a lot of movement that Cleveland can do, right? Because they have a lot of ties in terms of contracts and whatnot. So Vegas is a much more flexible situation for a head coach there. My number, what are we on? Like 6, 5? We're on number 5 here. So we have Baltimore, Giants, Atlanta, Vegas. My number 5 is Cleveland. I think some people have Cleveland a little bit higher up. I don't quite agree with that because one, could they draft a quarterback? Sure. Might they draft a quarterback? Probably. But you're not getting one of the top quarterback picks, unfortunately, because of your pick, right? So when we're looking at it from that perspective, there's not a ton of flexibility to reshape this team. It is what it is, right? Unless you try and, flip and offload everything that you got and then try to rebuild next year. This team is what it is. Basically, you need to improve the offensive line, draft an actual wide receiver one, and you need to figure out how to work with the quarterbacks that you have, right? So, and yeah, you'll bring in competition, and they made it clear Barry made it clear that they're going to bring in competition as well. Now, what competition they're bringing in, we don't know what that'll look like. But at the end of the day, it's not going to be an elite tier competition. So you're going to have to work with what you got here. So that's why they kind of fall back further here. And obviously because they're also the Browns. And then Arizona coming in at number 6 there. We talked about this one in terms of just the fact that they very mediocre. They don't make a lot of big moves here, unfortunately. Yeah, buy and sell you says still Watson's team. They gotta pay him, right? And we're gonna see him next. That's crazy, right? Off of a torn Achilles and a retorn Achilles. Yeah, we're gonna see him next season. It is what it is. They paid. You've got to pay it. It's contract. He's on the team. Probably you can't offload him. Who on earth wants that? So they're probably going to trot him out in the offseason and see if his body is still physically usable after the ACL or not ACL, Achilles injury. Yeah. What a mess, right? It's so dumpster fire. So unfortunately, that's why it goes further on down the list. Yeah. But Arizona, we talked about it. They're just a very meh team. Don't seem to like they want to make big bold moves or anything like that. So I don't see this being an ideal landing spot for anybody, although they have so much talent on the team in terms of the defense is shaping out kind of weird. There's pieces there, but not pieces that you see. Like it ain't no Cleveland, right? In terms of defensive assets that you have there. There's no Atlanta in terms of the young talent that you got there, right? But you got Trey McBride, you got Marvin Harrison Jr., you got Michael Wilson. It's a bevy of offensive talent. The running back situation is weird. We'll have to see how that goes. But yeah, they come in at number 6. And then the very last one, Tennessee. I feel so bad for Titans fans and the Titans players in general. They've got a major ownership issue. The flipping that they're doing, it doesn't make they're stuck in a weird loop, and the owner seems super petty. And they're just stuck in a weird loop where it seems like they're just, okay, we're gonna fire a GM. Oh, we're gonna fire a coach. Oh, we're gonna fire a GM. Oh, we're gonna fire a coach. Okay, this process doesn't make a ton of sense, but you're keeping at it. When they hired Brian Callahan, I was like, okay, that's not inspiring. That's not gonna last. I was not shocked whatsoever. He didn't make it through the debate. Yeah, why would he have made it far? And from a head coach perspective, why would you want to go to a team that did what they did to Vrabel? Why would you want to go to a team that will undersell your wide receiver one for you, leave you looking dumbfounded in the draft room on live TV? Why would you ever they will continue to struggle with defunct coaching hires, because why would you want to go? If you're a top candidate, why would you want to go there? I'm not in a million years. And it's a shame because Cam Ward showed promise. I love the young wide receivers there. You guys know I love Chimere Dike. I think that Alec Ayamanar I think he's a talented prospect as well. He showed promise. It remains to be seen if they keep Tony Pollard, but obviously he picked up towards the end of the season. If not, they're going to move forward with Tajay Spears, who's got the talent. It just doesn't make a ton of sense, unfortunately. And in terms of, the coaching opportunities, and it's going to be another season of looking at these Titans players like, wow, okay. Right? I'm still convinced this is what ultimately ends up being the landing spot for Kevin Stefanski, which I would hate for Cam Ward, but I kind of got a feeling that's what's going to happen there. Yeah. But those wraps up the head coaches stuff. Let's dive in. Well, actually, let's take a little bit of an ad break here. And hear a word from our sponsors there. And I will be right back after this, and we're going to do a little recap of the 2025 season. We will be looking at winners, losers, bounce backs, all that good stuff.
Oh, working out so important for your health, for your sex life, for everything, just everything in general. I perform better across the board, podcasting, you name it. The last thing I need to be thinking about is, creating a new workout routine. That's why we have FITBOD. It prevents you from plateauing. It's so customizable in that I have one super strong shoulder and one kind of weak shoulder. And yet the FITBOD app helps me customize my workouts to improve the strength and the endurance. I go in, my physical therapist is like, I can't believe you're doing this many. And I'm like, I know. Can you believe this? And he's like, yeah, this is crazy. So level up your workouts. They have over 1,000 demonstration videos. And join FitBod today to get your personalized workout plan, which includes 25% off, or try the app for free for 7 days. Go to fitbod.me/player, fitbod.me/player, FITBOD/player for 25% off for 7 days free.
And we're back here. Let's talk some positive stuff. We talk about head coaching vacancies. Those can be negative and positive. Let's talk some positive stuff and recapping the 2025 season. Because there were a lot of good things that happened. It was such a weird season with all of the injuries that went on. Unfortunately, I mean, they hit, injuries always happen. And we always say this, oh my God, the injuries are rolling in. But it truly did feel like this one was a gut-wrenching one. I mean, the Malik Neighbors one right off the bat was just painful, right? We had a lot of frustrating injuries like Lamar Jackson's injury that was lingering, Joe Burrow's injury that took him out for a long portion of the season and ended up, we got Jake Browning having to start, knocked out all of our players. We couldn't even get just barely any fantasy points out of Chase Brown. The wide receivers were inconsistent. Then we finally, by the luck, have, Joe Flacco come in and breathe life back into the offense there. But it was just such a weird season in terms of how everything shaped out there. But one of the good, not weird things that happened there that I love talking about here is Javonte Williams. And this was a fun one to talk about because and Dallas has made it clear, and I do, as much as I often give Dallas a hard time, but I do think they will be of their word in terms of truly wanting to bring Javonte Williams back. And I don't know, and this was a good turnaround for Javonte, so I don't know why he would want to test out the waters anywhere else in free agency. So I think that'll probably be one of the ones that finally will have Dallas make a contract decision, not up at the last minute with drama. I think they'll get this one handled pretty quickly there, and we'll have Javonte Williams again in Dallas. But it was wonderful to see him thrive after having the injury, the down year there, the untimely booting out of Denver there, and for him to make this turnaround and really showcases the running back that we thought he was going to be heading out of college there was wonderful to witness. It was fun from a draft perspective because this was a fun, it'll be interesting to see if we get the same thing. We don't have as many ideal running back landing spots this year. Actually, as I was going through, I'll side note from Javonte. Again, I told you guys I got my giant free agency and draft tracker. And as I was going through my landing spots for running backs, I realized that this is not this is going to be a weird one because I feel like we had a lot of very clear and defined openings at running back last year and not so much this year. Spoiler alert, Kansas City is obviously going to be one where a running back is going to be pretty critical there. Do they continue to make things work with Isaiah Pacheco? We don't know, just because obviously they treated his usage very strange this season. So ultimately, will they want to move forward with him as a true lead back? We don't know. They could simply just move on, right? Then we have got Minnesota, who does not have anyone exiting in free agency, but they have Ty Chandler exiting in free agency, but that doesn't really matter. Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason are there in contract, but Aaron Jones is aging. That was one who was unfortunately a big fantasy loser there, an expected fantasy loser. This is 2 years in a row that we have seen Aaron Jones ineffective at the goal line. And a lot of times people don't think of him as like a goal line type of back. And I'm a Packers fan, so I've got lots of years and fond memories of Aaron Jones. While he and AJ Dillon did have a lot of 1A, 1B, the Packers were not very dogmatic about, oh no, Aaron Jones at the goal line. He got plenty of touchdowns. It was not an issue there, and he was successful in that usage. But his time in Minnesota has been problematic in terms of success at the goal line here. And it's just age. That's all it is. He's perhaps not built for that. It's been a long career there. And while he is still very valuable from a receiving perspective, he had no issue there, right? And I think that continues. I don't see a path to him ever rebounding to a point where he gets into that, like 8 to 12 range of touchdowns on the ground. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Then we got Jordan Mason there, who again, we could have this kind of early down goal line, receiving back split with them. They could try and run it back and make it work that way. But ultimately, this could be an interesting spot for them to draft a running back that operates as more of a true 3 down back for them. So that's one that I really want to keep my eye on there. Dallas would obviously be an ideal landing spot, but I think they retain Javonte Williams. Houston is going to be a very interesting landing spot and a frustrating one. I talked about this on the Football Diehards on Sirius XM the other night. Last night. Houston is going to be a really frustrating one for us. I can already predict it, right? Because we've been through Houston having not a premier draft prospect at running back, right? Ascend to the RB1 role in Dameon Pierce. We're thinking, oh my gosh, yeah, cool. We got, our dynasty people were thinking smart, like, oh yeah, I drafted him and he's turned into this great lead back asset. And whoop, nope. Yeah, that didn't happen. So got a little PTSD there from that situation. So Woody Mark showed very well this season. You will have to go through the stress of trying to figure out if he can actually retain the lead back role, or if it's going to go down the same path of him falling to the wayside and there not being a ton of loyalty there. We'll also have to figure out and get any context clues if Joe Mixon is actually physically ever going to be able to return to the field. That one was that was a right call for me there. I was very adamant on no Joe Mixon. That was I rarely do a full fade of I've only full faded 2 players this season, Joe Mixon and Caleb Johnson. And I always get Caleb Johnson and Caleb Williams. They're such common Caleb names. Caleb Johnson was my other full fade this season. And it'll be interesting to see if we can ever get any kind of true details in terms of whether or not and what we can actually expect from Joe Mixon. Because even if he does, return and it starts working out in the offseason, what's the trust level going to be there with us? In terms, like, he's an aging running, like, old, we've got a running back, an older running back. I haven't looked at his age recently. What's his age there? Let me check real quick. Joe Mixon, what's your age? What do you been at? 30, 29, maybe? Oh, this is not going to be quick for me to look up. That's irritating. Joe Mixon, you are 29. There we go. 29. So yeah, he'll be age 30 season there. We got age 30 running back who has not played in over a year. Trust level there, kind of super low, right? So it'll be very interesting to see. I would assume that they draft a running back, probably not a day. Well, probably maybe around 3 or 4 kind of running back and see what happens there. That's funny. Go the ghost of Arian Foster there, comment there from leaving. And then Marks is going to have to be in a committee to stay healthy-ish. Potentially there. But yeah, committee might have to be. I think he's a true 3 down back, but he did get banged up quite a bit this season for sure. Let me see what else we got here. Comments before I move on to. I was in the middle of talking. No, actually, let me finish up my conversation. That's the ADD in me. Finish up the conversation about Javonte Williams. I got sidetracked about the running back locations there in free agent. There's just not a lot of, besides Houston, New Orleans. But again, where Alvin Kamara isn't going anywhere, he made that clear. He has planted his flag in New Orleans, and apparently he loves this. I get it. I love New Orleans. I love New Orleans food. So I understand why he would not want to leave. that's his city. He said he's running it and he ain't leaving. So got Washington, but ultimately that's, a full-blown committee situation. I don't know that they're theoretically going, they'll have a change in offensive coordinator, but the whole committee thing was just, that wasn't even Cliff as much as I don't think that's ultimately was really Cliff as much as it was that they just opted to try and go a committee route. So we'll see if they can truly dedicate themselves. And then we'll have to figure out if Breece Hall is going to stay in New York or not. But yeah, running back. So for that reason, again, I don't think there's any logical reason Javonte would want to go out and go anywhere else. Staying in Dallas makes a ton of sense there. It was ultimately just a fantastic season from him in terms of him rebounding there, and the value that he had from a fantasy perspective was one of the few. Like, I was very nervous about a lot of these because I wouldn't even consider him I wouldn't even consider him a dead zone running back. I would consider him a post dead zone running back, right? A lot of nervousness around a lot of those guys there in that kind of range, and he was one of the very few that panned out there. Again, this was a fun one here. So big fantasy winner this season, Javonte Williams. Going back to the chat here from Troy Lambs. Have you thought about the upset for wild card weekend? I have. I think that Jacksonville can win. I think that they can beat Buffalo. God, if Buffalo got upset in round one, that would be crazy. But it's a weird setup because we've got so many. So with, on both sides, you had Pittsburgh limping and creeping in. You had Carolina default getting in. So you've already got two matchups that are completely nixed out of the realm of possibility of having the upset. Then we got, like Green Bay and Chicago was very even for me. I would consider neither one of those. If one wins, one doesn't, neither one of those would ever be considered an upset for me. Realistically, I do think that the most intriguing game for an upset there is going to be Jacksonville and Buffalo. And that's a real fun one. It's going to be a fun one. It has the highest point total of the weekend with 51 and a half there. So despite the fact that obviously those two teams have excellent defenses, right? Especially it's funny because Buffalo's defense was very, very stupidly run friendly all season long. They pulled it together towards the end of the season there. So I consider them at this point here a very well-rounded. If the change in run defense that they had towards the end of the season sticks, that's a really tough defense there, especially from a pass perspective. But the work that Liam Cohen has done with Trevor, Trevor is really a huge fantasy winner as well. My God, the turnaround that he had. I have a fantasy winners video, and then a bounce back losers video as well that are on my YouTube channel if you guys want to help take that or check that out. But Trevor Lawrence was a massive winner. The work that Liam Cohen did with him this season, truly miraculous. And again, that's what I talk about like the underwhelming coaching cycle here in terms of available options. And John Harbaugh aside, there's no Liam Cohen. There's no Ben Johnson. This is just kind of like, right? It's like, okay, good defensive candidates, but no offensive gurus out there. And the work that both Ben Johnson and Liam Cohen have done is just fantastic on all ends there. So when you're looking at that Jacksonville team, just top to bottom, the defense is strong enough that I think they can give some fits there to Josh Allen. It's going to be they won the division, home game for them. And then run game strong with Travis and Bashal Tutin, and Trevor Lawrence has just been on fire there. So despite it being like an extremely difficult pass matchup, I honestly think that is the most realistic possibility for an upset this weekend. So that's going to be a very, very fun one there. Buy and sell you. Thank you. Great show. Let's get together on one when you get some news in the off season. For sure on that one. Leaving says the ghost of Arian Foster there in the ghost of Arian Foster there in Houston. And what else there? Leaving says Harbaugh to Buffalo if they get upset. And that's a very interesting comment there. And that's why I also kind of think that we might not see a decision from Harbaugh immediately. Because I like put out a video on like TikTok and people were like, he's going to get hired like immediately within a week. And I was like, it might be a slower process because he's got his pick, whatever he wants. There are clearly multiple teams that have not fired their head coaches that are more than willing to dump whatever coach like in Mike McDaniel, and I'm pretty sure he knows it's him. Pretty sure he's fully aware that if John Harbaugh were to ever say yeah, then I don't think he ever would go to Miami. That's a little silly there. But if he did, they would kick Mike to the curb so fast. So that's a really, really very interesting comment. I think it would be a very, very real possibility that they would be willing to do that. Especially because, again, it would be a kind of the same situation of Sean McDermott there, just kind of at the peak of what he can do. And with Buffalo, this is a very critical year for them because you don't have Kansas City to go through. You don't have a Joe Burrow to go through. It's you. You got to go be like, okay, like, if you can't do it, and if you're saying like you got a second-year quarterback as the 1 seed in Bo Nix, you've got Trevor Lawrence that you got to go through. What Aaron Rodgers, CJ Stroud. I love CJ. I don't. Pittsburgh's not winning. But CJ Stroud obviously would be the other one as well. So would be honestly beyond wild card weekend, if Denver does not make it through to the Super Bowl, I low-key think that it might be Houston, just because of how ridiculous that defense is. It's truly disgusting. Talk about a vision that DeMeco Ryans had in terms of how they were arranging that team. And it was really just a certain level of brilliance that you have to admire there in what they've been able to develop. I can't wait to see Houston, like just looking forward to 2026. I am personally so excited to hopefully have Houston look and focus and say, like, the only thing that you have to do with your team is you just got to get that offensive line in check. If you can get that offensive line in check, you've got all the other pieces around you. You don't even technically have if you want to add another running back to be in tandem with Woody, that's cool. But you don't have to make a big investment there. Everything is so set. All you have to do is fix that offensive line so that CJ Stroud can stand upright and throw the ball downfield. If you can do that, they're a serious. I would not be shocked to see CJ Stroud in a Super Bowl this year or next year as well, just because, again, if he can have stability and lean on that defense, sky's the limit there for sure. So there's no elite quarterback for Josh Allen to go through. So if you can't get through on this one, man, they're going to have a lot of questions going on in Buffalo for sure there. Moving on to some other players to talk about as well. I want to touch on James Cook. James Cook is one that I really want to touch about his 2025 and 2026 looking ahead there. And it'll be very interesting. It'll be very interesting because we're going to have James Cook 100% shoot up to a first-round pick for sure. And it'll be coming off of a season of the highest usage of his entire career. So I was very pro James Cook heading into the season, as long as that contract got solved. And this is also something for us to think about in terms of lessons learned from 2025. We often tend to skirt around it and ignore and hold it on a case-by-case basis here. But really and truly, when it comes to any player that is dealing with a contract, if the contract gets solved a few weeks before the season, if it's solved a month before the season starts and they can show up to training camp and work out and do preseason, all that good stuff, and have plenty of work under their belt heading into the season like James Cook did, that's not a problem. If it's a Terry McLaurin situation, if it's a Brandon Ayuk, these players that are going with the contract drama right up into the last minute, we doesn't matter how much we love them, we got to let it go. That said, more than likely, we're probably getting a Terry McLaurin bounce back. I have moved him up in my rankings for 2026, higher than consensus will probably be on him, just because I do think that we're going to get a pretty decent bounce back there from the offense as a whole they'll obviously have a new, and it'll be interesting to see who they hire for their coordinator there. I don't know that they should have parted ways with Cliff Kingsbury. I don't agree with that. There was nothing that he could have done to stop the way that their offense was going to look this season, unfortunately. But when we're looking at Jaden Daniels being healthy, Deebo Samuel probably exiting, because it was, so he is entering the free agent market. I would assume they potentially move on from him as well and do not re-sign him. So we're probably looking at a young player drafted to be a wide receiver in tandem with Terry McLaurin there. So we should see Terry McLaurin's production bounce back very well there. But looking back at James Cook and the contract situation, it was solved early enough to where it wasn't an issue. And we really should have taken him more seriously as a whole there, because a lot of concern, and this is another lesson learned. Don't apply regression willy-nilly. I don't use the word willy-nilly, but I feel like it's appropriate in this situation because that is exactly how it was applied. It's fun to say such and such led, the position in touchdowns. There's going to be regression because logically, yeah, there will be regression, right? But regression in terms of it actually affecting the fantasy value, we need to pause on that because sometimes it's applied just for no absolute reason. When I'm looking at running backs in particular, my regression, my view of regression is very, very simple there. It's workload. It's not what your production actually was. If you managed to get 1,500 yards on 210 carries, you didn't have an aggressive workload. You will not have a regression issue. If those 1,500 yards came on 340 carries, whoops, we've got an issue there. We've got an issue. You probably are going to regress because there's only so much your body can handle. That's what we had happen with Saquon Barkley. Regression made a ton of sense there. We knew it was going to happen. We kind of ignored it, not because we didn't believe the regression would come, just because it felt a wee bit foolish to fade, because it doesn't apply every situation you kind of have to take that risk occasionally, because sometimes a player is just too good to fade. And realistically, people just did not feel comfortable letting Saquon Barkley fall there. But the regression made sense. He's actually one of my favorite bounce back candidates for next year. Because again, we'll get a new offensive situation there. Definitely. They can't do it right now, but we're probably going to see them do a complete 180 in terms of their offensive vision there. We'll have Saquon coming off of a much lower usage. The use for him dramatically dipped this season. So he'll be in a much better place heading into next season. And for James Cook, though, it'll be very interesting because this was the first time that he has exceeded 300 carries. And 300 is not a super aggressive mark. If he had been teetering, now granted, if they make a long playoff run, then if they get to the Super Bowl, that would probably present an issue and make it very clear for me. But if they were to exit first round, 300 is not that aggressive with a little first round playoff. It puts it more of a borderline situation for me. But if we pile on multiple rounds there, I start to get worried that we will see the James Cook regression in 2026 because he finally got that aggressive usage. He has not had that in previous years there. That's why I did not think that he was a regression candidate, because physically, likelihood of him having any kind of physical regression was low. The team would have had to regress, and that was just not going to happen, right? So I do worry a little bit about him heading into 2026, but really, really love the work that he did heading into the season there. We got a super chat here from... Oh, good question. From Evan Nicolaj, 6'3", 46. Parkinson or Higbee this week only, full PPR. So Higbee coming back was very interesting. And I kind of want to lean towards Higbee because of the fact that, again, his usage in the season was definitely that of the wide receiver one. He came back to a very aggressive usage in terms of his week 18 performance, immediately big usage right off the bat there. I do lean towards Higbee over Parkinson. It's tough to fade Parkinson because he still remained very involved there, but I think Higbee is the better route to go there for this week. And good luck in the playoff fantasy there. I'm going to do some underdog drafts. I think I'm going to do some underdog drafts. I have not entered any yet. I was thinking through my strategy today, actually, and then I was thinking through, do I want to make a video on the strategy and players to highlight there for our fantasy drafts for playoffs? But I don't know if I'm going to be able to get around to it. But yeah, I'm going to do some best ball drafts for playoffs too. So it's going to be very fun. If you're not involved in any best ball drafts or any kind of pick'ems or anything like that, it's always fun to do, even if you haven't done it all season, just to kind of keep that fun alive there for sure. Let's see here. We got some more questions. What's up, Albert? How you doing? From C Money. Who else is going to get fired? I think that Leaving's suggestion of potentially Sean McDermott being on the table is very interesting. I don't think that we're going to have another person fired unless that team is courting John Harbaugh. That is the only caveat of that. I do think somebody who will hold on to their coach, because it is theoretically a weak market, hold on to their coach, wait for the next cycle. But if they were able to potentially get Harbaugh, they would in fact move on there. So I think we're paused for right now in terms of the firings. I think the last one that we kind of had to worry about there was Todd Bowles, who hung on. To his credit, he told everybody that this team being awful, that was not his fault. He said it's not his fault. They don't care. They're not trying. They are trash, and that has nothing to do with me. And management agreed with him, so he gets to retain his job there. Fathom says, this is one of the most unpredictable years in football. I'm glad somebody else agrees there. From JP, JPTR2A, thank you for all your insight. Helped me in the most critical moments. Thank you for hanging around and, being with me this season. I appreciate all you guys so much. Oh, and JP, that's so generous there. JP with the super chat there for literally $50. That's awesome. I appreciate you guys. You guys make this wonderful. Obviously, I do it because I super enjoy football and it makes me happy, right? But I really enjoy you guys and the community that we have. And this was really good, getting my YouTube channel together, having a nice place for all of us to be here. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much, JP. Really appreciate that. That was very, very kind of you. Very, very kind. And I hope to see you throughout the off season as well. And next season, it's going to be a fun off season for us guys. From Leaving, Campbell squandered a pretty good roster, but he's safe. Yeah, I think he is a very inspirational coach, right? Very inspirational, a good leader of men, but he has to have coordinators, right? And that's not a bad thing. I too think that I would be more of the Dan Campbell type, right? So there's no negative towards him. Like, good manager, get my people in place and have my people have the best games possible. They really have to. He's going to have to go. Nick Sirianni is the same way. Nick Sirianni ain't really talented. Hold your team together, hire the right people around you, let them do their thing. Like, don't interfere. And when that doesn't happen, unfortunately, as we saw with Philadelphia, when that doesn't happen, unfortunately, and you lose your talent that at coordinator, unfortunately, you are going to go downhill as well. I mean, even losing Aaron Glenn for as sad as the Jets, well, I feel bad for Aaron Glenn. For as sad as the Jets were, losing Aaron Glenn was clearly a major issue for Detroit as well on that defense. So it'll be interesting to see how they rebound for sure. But what else, guys? We're going to wrap things up here in a second, but this was a good little chat here. As a reminder, this offseason, just in general things that we're going to be doing. We'll be doing lots of talks about rookies from a dynasty perspective, but also from a redraft perspective, so we can get ahead of the game super early there. And we'll be diving into it here soon. Like, this is such a weird turnaround here, just because, again, I talked about it earlier in the show. The college football championship is throwing me off. The fact that we are literally, what is it going to be on the, where's my calendar? I mean, for it to be this late here is very, very perplexing in my mind. I can't wrap my head around that we're getting like literally a 2-week turnaround to the Senior Bowl, which I love. I'll be doing a lot of Senior Bowl work there. Not there, I won't be going there, but I'll be doing a lot of Senior Bowl work watching it, because that's such a great place to find prospects. That is where I first saw, well, not first saw, right? Because you look at college, right? But that is when I first really got a really good look at Chimere Dike and fell in love with him, the Senior Bowl. You can see it's such a good place to look at the players, because they're doing drills all throughout the week and then they do the game. The drills are more critical, right? Because you're seeing all these players lining up, back to back to back here. And it allows you to see and make comparisons and say, wow, that guy's great. That guy's got great hands. Or wow, that guy runs great routes. Wow, that guy's arm looks a little bit suspect there. So it's fun, a full week, and we'll do a lot of stuff. So that'll really kick off a lot of our rookie stuff. Then we'll go into free agency, which again is a super passion of mine. I'm all prepared for it with landing spots, ideal locations there. We're gonna have a really good time with free agency as well. Then it'll take us into draft stuff. We'll obviously talk about early rankings and sleepers and all that good stuff. So it'll be a fun off season for us. So stick around with me, guys. It'll be wonderful here. Thank you, Greg. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for hanging out with us as well here. I appreciate your support. But that wraps things up, guys. I had a lot of more players that we were going to go through, but of course, I can always talk about those next week as well. We've gone for about an hour, so that's pretty good here. We spent a lot of time talking about the coaches. I didn't expect to talk about the coaches that much, but honestly, it was a valuable conversation because, again, with the coaches, they're going to be more critical. Like a lot of times you get the coaching hires, you're like, okay, well, what kind of, how's this fit for, our players? Are we going to see maybe a shift in terms of more flat usage, right? Are they going to show a little bit more favoritism to the tight end position? Is this person like running a committee and whatnot? But I think, and a lot of that is often, speculation, right? In terms of what schemes they're bringing in from their prior teams. But a lot, we're going to have more than we should in terms of quarterback or in terms of head coaches that are existing and just got fired, shifting in new locations. So that's going to be very definitive for us in terms of how we approach our players. So this is going to be a really important one for us to follow in terms of the coaching hiring cycle here this season. But that wraps things up, guys. Appreciate you too. Easy E, you have a fantastic night. But I'll be back here with you guys next week, same time, same place. We'll be talking more stuff. Maybe perhaps we'll start doing a little, we talking rookies or free agency preview. Maybe we'll talk free agency. I don't know, perhaps, or maybe rankings. Actually, you know what? We might actually do rankings next week because I was going to talk and go into rankings and we didn't get around to it. So yeah, maybe next week we'll go over my top 24 at every position next week and do rankings. That's perfect. Yeah, let's go that route. But I appreciate you guys tuning in here. Thank you so much. Again, this is the Dear Miss Fantasy podcast, available on all podcast platforms. And if you could subscribe to that, that would be amazing. Also, my YouTube channel, that is where I'm going to be putting out all the videos, and then also Player Profiler as well, who this podcast is through. So thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. I will talk to you next week. Enjoy the playoffs. We got wild card weekend. This is going to be a fun one here. Enjoy the playoffs. Enjoy the football, the stress-free football. Well, not if you play DFS or bet. Might be a little stress inducing there, but hopefully not too much there. But enjoy a fantastic wild card weekend. Hopefully we get some fun upsets here that we can talk about next week. Other than that, I will talk to you all again. Have a wonderful week. Peace out, guys. Bye.